welcome, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam. Um, I hope you all had a great Memorial Day holiday, and because we were off. And I just want to introduce myself a little bit for those of you who do not know. I am a public relations and marketing professional with a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And tonight, we're going to have a very interesting and hopefully robust conversation about a number of topics. Um, we're going to cover gun control. We're going to cover immigration. We're going to talk about book bans and all that stuff. And even something rather humorous at the end about the Lord's chicken. Okay. So I have two guests scheduled, and one of them I don't see yet on stage. So I'm going to bring up um, our tried and true, faithful Latrice Davis and introduce you to her again. All right. There she is. Hey, Latrice.
Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Yes. No stranger to the show whatsoever is Latrice Davis. She is a former journalist with the Associated Press. She is currently a senior court clerk at Queens County Civil Court in Jamaica, New York, and is a member of Queens Community Board number 6 over the Aging and Social Services and Disabilities Committee. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I don't know quite yet what happened to, because I know that she confirmed and even confirmed today, and maybe she's trying to get on. Loretta Thomas Walker. So let's start getting into stuff.
Yes, I saw your memo about immigration.
Yeah, that's gonna be our first topic is immigration, because and really you should have an interesting insight on it, but because of just because of where you're living now and what's happened and what have you. So I'll be quite honest. I don't understand. I went to read and research about what Obama tried to do and all of that. And it just seems like Congress just won't get it together. It's like there's no will to do the right thing. You got to do something. You can't just leave this hanging out here like we have it. So all I know is that when we get to start talking further into immigration, we know that DeSatan, also known as DeSantis of Florida, has done his job in passing one of the strictest illegal immigrant laws in the country, where so strict, in fact, that people have left the fields, the produce fields, and they have left several construction projects. So it looks like if we want an orange or something, we might have to pay $25 for an orange. Yours truly will not be paying $25 for an orange.
That makes two of us.
Right. So I don't know what is it that we are not doing, Latrice? And even I definitely want you to delve into what's been happening there in New York, because you guys are getting shipments of immigrants from Texas.
Sure, I'll be happy to speak on that. First things first, I do want to talk about Florida because, as you know, my oldest brother lives in Florida. We have a running joke between he and I. Like, we have a running joke about his governor being a moron, along with his senators and other elected officials down in the Sunshine State. He did mention to me how he's noticed how, like, another job that a lot of immigrants tended to do down there is landscaping, and how he's noticed in the past couple of days, guys haven't been around to mow the lawn, cut the grass, trim the hedges, do all that stuff. He's never, like, approached him and asked about their immigration status and what have you, but he just kind of assumed that, yeah, a fair amount of those workers are not, documented. So he had mentioned that to me in a conversation we had this weekend. How past couple of days I haven't seen those guys around.
Mm.
So I think that's another thing we should keep in mind when it comes to the migrants leaving Florida. Not just the fact that our orange juice, that oranges may go up. I mean, food is expensive as it is. That's just one more item. But I agree with you. I'm not going to pay $25 for a bushel of oranges. They're good. They're good, but they're not that good. But
bushel. I said for one.
Oh, just one? Oh, I wouldn't pay $20. I wouldn't pay $25 for a bunch. Never mind just one. But as I had just mentioned, how the landscaping jobs, when you see people on the highway, tending to the properties, a lot of those jobs are held by migrants. So now that they've moved on to wherever they've moved on to, who's picking up the baton? So I think that's just one more thing to think about going forward.
Right. And that's the thing that's so telling about this whole process of immigration, is that we aren't being honest about how immigrants directly impact our overall economy. Not to mention, if you don't have immigrants, like say all of those DACA students that are going to school, that America is built on immigrants. So come on, what is it because they're Black and brown immigrants? Is that really the main issue?
That's part of it. I think you had alluded to it before when you talked about lack of political will. I think that's a major part of it, because again, we all know what the problem is, and yet years, if not decades later, we're still twiddling our thumbs and dancing around what's at stake. So I think it's a lack of political will. I think it's the fact that these migrants and undocumented immigrants, the majority, they tend to be non-white.
Yes.
I think that's a factor as well. And politicians like DeSantis and Governor Abbott in Texas, they're ramming these policies through the state level. And I don't think they're thinking things through, to put it kindly. They're not thinking that it's like, okay, yeah, we want to quote unquote own the libs. Okay. So I didn't know the libs were for sale to be owned, but it's like they're not thinking this through. And it's like, okay, so now that the migrants have left Florida, it's like, okay, yeah, those crops got to be harvested.
Right. And then the farmers are going to lose all this money. So make it make sense. What are you going to do? You cannot.
I saw a report last week. Maybe it was on NBCnews.com. BBC. I'm not sure, but I saw it on the internet. And the reporter was interviewing a group of farmers in Florida, and they were talking about the impact of the migrants leaving. And my first question to those guys, because the farmers were all guys, is, who did you vote for? Who, and not just in the 2020 election, but in the governor's election last year, in the Senate race. I mean, on the local level, when you voted for your mayors and county executives, who are you voting for? Right. Are these people representing your interests? Because, again, I really feel like guys like DeSantis, they just want to make a name for themselves. Consequences be damned. They're not thinking long term.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know how this is going to work out. Hopefully, things will. I mean, because the thing is, DeSantis just got reelected.
I know.
And now he's running for president, and I don't know how that's going to go. But I do feel like the Floridians set themselves up for this because they had a chance to get this man out of office, and they didn't.
Right. I just don't, and then the other problem too is because the main reason why I even started this show was to energize people to vote, to educate people to vote. And so all of this conversation is to hopefully encourage people to think first and strategically think about their vote. The unfortunate thing is that wherever there's a GOP controlled House, in these state legislatures, they're gerrymandering the places up. And so it's making it more and more difficult for us to be impactful. So it's almost like you have to overvote, that the turnout has to be tremendous in order to make a difference in cases of gerrymandering. Someone told me that maybe even in the case of gerrymandering, it won't make a difference, but I can't hear that. I just know that we just got to do something extraordinary to make that happen.
Or what could happen, worst case scenario is, okay, you know, I don't want to see states fall to the wayside like Florida, Georgia, what have you, but I'm in New York.
Right.
So even though I support various organizations, whether it's ACLU or Planned Parenthood, what have you, and I'm a monthly donor to both of those organizations, among others, but at the end of the day, I'm not a constituent. I cannot, I mean, like, I think about Stacey Abrams quite often. She should have won that governor's race.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's like, okay, as much as I was rooting for her, at the end of the day, I couldn't vote for her.
Right.
So I feel like, and like you talk about your reasons for doing this show, and this is something I say all the time when I'm at work at the courthouse. I'll help just about anybody, because that is my job, to help you give, navigate the court system and explain your legal options. But at some point, you have to help yourself.
Right.
And the best way to do that is, as you mentioned, to educate yourself. We all know what's at stake now. We've been known. So I think it's a lack of political will. I think it's a lack of foresight. Like last week, it was in the news about President Biden falling, and I just feel like, okay, do we have and I have nothing against Biden. I voted for him in the January election.
Yes.
But do we have a plan in place? Yeah. I mean, okay, let's say, best case scenario, Harris does become the president. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is she surrounded by people who have her best interests at heart? Because I haven't seen any reason to believe that the answer to that question is yes.
Yeah.
I suspect if she was to become president, the sharks will be circling for blood in the water. The wolves will be on the prowl. She would be undermined and undercut every which way but loose. And so I just feel like the Democrats, we have to get ourselves together in terms of strategy, in terms of vision, and in terms of planning. And I have yet to really see that.
Mm-hmm. You know what? We finally are beginning to get more positive reports about Harris, because I think that there was a whole plant done to chip away at her, chip away. And because she's a Black woman, and not just a woman of color, just because she's a woman, period. It's like, well, how dare you be in this position or whatever, being a breath away from the presidency. Mm-hmm. Look who we have. Loretta made it. All right. She had some difficulties. Let me add her to the stream.
Absolutely.
Hey, Loretta.
Hello. How's it going?
I'm so glad you were able to make it. Oh. I was here there. Let me introduce who you are first. Let me I have this flip paper here, and I have everything. Okay. So Loretta Thomas Walker is here, and she is retired with the capital RETIRED. Okay. This is after serving over 36 years as a logistics project manager for the United States Department of Defense in Warren, Michigan. My mom used to work there. Her position required extensive worldwide travel to ensure that federal regulations and procedures were met. She has established a legacy as a leader with the federal government. She is a proud HBCU grad of Central State University, and both of her adult children are HBCU alums as well. Welcome back, Loretta, my soror. Welcome back.
Good evening. How are you ladies doing tonight?
Good.
Very
good. This has been the opening question was about immigration. We're talking about immigration. We've gotten into DeSantis and his foolishness. I was telling Latrice, I said, because in Florida, all the people have started, they done left the fields with the fruit on the vines. They have left their construction jobs. Latrice's brother lives in Florida, and he said he hasn't noticed anybody cutting grass.
The landscaping jobs.
So I'm like, what's up? We were talking that we have to be honest about this thing, and why doesn't the Congress have a will to do the right thing? We got to get something passed with immigration. These people are very important to us, but Satan has made it so bad. He's saying you're gonna get punished if they're in your car of a felony and this and that. And they said, deuces, we'll see you later. Now what? Who's gonna pick up that slack? I don't want to pay $25 for an orange. That's the path that we're on. We're gonna need that vitamin C and stuff. Your doctor gonna say, have you been eating your fruits and vegetables? I'm gonna say, well, I forgot to plant a garden. I need to have planted the orange. And because I can't afford what's in the grocery store that's high already. So what do you have to say to that? Because Loretta, you work for the government, for the federal government. What's wrong with your people?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Ron DeSantis has been on the weird scale for quite a long time, ladies. It's just now manifesting itself to us. However, he is our concern, but he's not the greatest concern. I am watching this presidential race quite earnestly, and I'm sure everyone else is, as I am. As far as the immigrants go, I think he's shown himself to be who he is. I don't think he's shown truly all of his character yet. I believe there's more to see here.
That's scary.
Yeah, and very scary. And so, but I want to go on another subject matter, which I do understand $25 for an orange and $50 for a banana is going to cost us greatly and everything. I do understand the concerns here. I don't want to say too much because I'll sound very conservative when I say it, but there are things that I am concerned about with this country. I'm not 100% with Ron DeSantis, but there are things about this country that we could do a little bit better, to be honest with you. Just to be honest with you. I mean, we're paying for people who are out there coming across the border, and we've got homeless people on the streets who are not being housed or fed, who are Native Americans. And so I'm concerned about that.
I am too. And in fact, I had made a note about this, where you're going with this, because I did see from another state, there was a sister, it was a Black woman and a few other people that were complaining about some of the benefits that immigrants were getting that they didn't have access to, and they're paying taxes.
Correct.
And then I found out from one of my former guests, Dr. Deborah Jenkins. I don't know if you guys remember that show. She did a whole show from her lens about reparations.
Correct.
And she was something. And she mentioned in that, in her talk about reparations, she talked about education. And she told us on the show that there were some 8 or 10 Ukrainian students that got full rides to university.
I remember that.
Rides. And, Hampton is a private institution, so it ain't cheap. It's not like going to, no education is cheap, but it's not going to a public university.
Correct.
I'm saying, how is it that you can come here and get full rides to one of our HBCUs, but do you remember when those African students
were stuck over in Ukraine? Yeah, I remember.
Over in Ukraine, correct.
They couldn't get on the bus,
correct,
or trains.
Correct.
I don't want to be mean-spirited or nothing like that, but I know exactly where you're coming from. I know exactly.
And to me, that's not a matter of sounding conservative. To me, it's just common sense. I mean, right now in New York, Mayor Adams is trying to figure out what to do with the migrants that are arriving here by the busload. And my issue with him
from Texas.
Yeah. But my issue with him is that to me, it looks like he's just throwing anything and everything against the wall and just praying for something to stick. One idea he threw out there was putting the migrants up in libraries. And it's like, well, okay, first off, how are they going to bathe? Where are they going to take showers? Where are they going to eat? A library doesn't have cooking facilities. A library is not meant for that. That's not its place. And I understand you want to help these people out, but again, have you thought this through? And
he hasn't had time because they just showed up.
No, I understand that. And so in that respect, I don't envy the predicament that he finds himself in. But as you know, homelessness is not a new thing. We've had homelessness in this country for decades, unfortunately, and we still have yet to wrap our heads around it. I've always said in the past, and I'll say it again, I am in favor of supportive housing. I think that is the first step of many steps in addressing and I mean, I don't know. I can't say that homelessness will be eradicated, but we definitely need to address it. We can't keep sticking our heads in the sand. We can't keep kicking the can down the road because sooner or later you're going to reach a dead end, and that's where we are now. So I think supportive housing is one way to alleviate the migrant situation and the homelessness situation. One thing I've read is that a lot of these immigrants want to work. Mm-hmm. I'm sure, and I can say from my own experience, most people, given a choice, they do want to work. But being that they're not here legally, they got to go through the proper channels and get documentation, and that's going to take time. Mm-hmm. So, okay, while you're doing that, you still need a place to live. You still need food in your stomach. You still need clothes on your back. Mm-hmm. So it's like, again, I mean, I like free stuff as much as the next person, but the reality is somebody's got to pay for all this. And as it stands right now, that somebody is the taxpayer, which is us.
Yes, right. Agreed. Ladies, let me ask you, which is a little bit more important here, because I'm sure you all are aware of the fact that you got mayors in Black cities. You got Black mayors in cities who are the mayors, and then you got the Senate of that state trying to control and govern them. So you're aware of the situation where the mayors are asking for the governors and the senators to stop trying to control their city. They got it. They have, I mean, especially when it comes to police and everything like that. Right. So you have the mayors out there trying, and so there's a new thing that's been put out there, posted, about that if a police approaches someone incorrectly or something like that, that's a $50,000 fine or something like that. So let me ask you, because $25 for an orange is a concern of mine. Yes, it is. But we've got guns out there.
That's our next
manufacture. That we do not manufacture. And so it looks like they want to stifle the police when it comes to the police dealing with Caucasian, not to say Caucasian people, but when it comes to Black people, have at it. So I need to ask you, what's a little bit more germane here to us? Is it the $25 for the orange? Is it the police scenario with the Black mayors, a situation like that?
I think all of it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say all of it's important
because we need the oranges because we need the vitamin C. Okay, we got to have our nutrition.
It goes beyond the orange. I mean, I get what you're saying, Pam, but I think it's all important for similar reasons. For one thing, it's not just oranges. You have other crops that are grown in Florida that we consume. And
that's the first one I could think of is oranges. Okay?
Yeah, no, I get it. Sunshine State, I get it. But I mean, again, when you look at the price of eggs or dairy, like the price of milk, cheese, sugar, like basic food staples, I mean, $5 for a carton of eggs. I'm like, what? And then we get the milk, and then you get the other stuff, and it's like, to me, that's just insane. Who can afford $5 for some eggs? It's like, I still can't wrap my head around it. So that is important because we have to eat.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not like we're using eggs to make filet mignon or shrimp. We're talking eggs.
Yeah.
So that is important. And as far as the police state, That's important as well. Like ghost guns, where are these ghost guns coming from? Like you said, Loretta, we're not manufacturing. We don't have the infrastructure for that. We don't own buildings. You need money. Where's that money coming from?
Mm-hmm. Right. And that is the perfect segue to our next subject on gun violence. I have a little video I want to show you guys about what Supreme Court Justice, I think is Warren Burger, says about the late Supreme Court Justice says about the Second Amendment that gun activists use to justify their weapons of mass destruction. And I'm going to share right now. Oops, that's the wrong one. Okay. All right. Do you see it?
Determination.
I hear it, but I don't see anything.
Your fanny pack and liquid IV hydration is packed with 3 times the electrolytes.
Huh. Okay, hold on.
That's a harder one to answer. If I were writing.
What if it all looks good? What if I can't decide?
It keeps skipping.
Yeah, because I hear audio, but I don't see anything.
Correct. We hear the audio.
Okay, hold on. What? And now I practice this, okay? I just want you to know that I actually practice this. Let me come back to StreamYard. Okay. Maybe because I didn't hit that and hit. That is so weird.
You've done this before. I've seen you.
Yes, and I don't know what's going. You know what? I wonder, is it that they have? Oh, Chrome it's saying something that Chrome has done something. It's something with my Chrome. Dang, because I hear this thing funny that I got to show y'all. That is. Oh my God, that's at the end. At any rate, Justice Warren Burger said that the Second Amendment was really the biggest crock of bull crap that he'd ever seen. He said it's only a few sentences, and it talks about the militia needing the right to bear arms, right? But that was way back when, and those people had muskets. They didn't have AK-47. I mean, if he were still alive,
right,
he would be like, have you all really lost your minds? And I think that the answer to that is actually yes. So, Loretta, for everything that we have done, is there anything that we haven't tried to move the needle forward to obtain gun control? What haven't we done?
Oh, we've done everything in this country. To be honest with you, Joe Biden has really tried his best. I will say, hi, Brad. I will say that what we need to do is that we need to continue to, okay, I'm just going to say it. When my son moved to North Carolina, I made sure he had a gun. I definitely made sure he had a 9mm for sure, and another piece as well. We're living the days of the seriously the 1900s, if you ask me, or the 1800s. Yeah. Remember how our grandparents always had guns? They never. Remember, our grandparents always had a gun. Mm-hmm. We're back to that stage now, ladies, where we've got to be prepared to defend ourselves. We've got to. There's no getting around this. We've got to be prepared to be aware of our neighbors. We've got to be prepared. Mm-hmm. These men right now are frightened. The senators and the congressmen, they're frightened. And so when you have fear navigating your life like it is with these guys, let's not forget the reason why they're senators and congressmen. They're trying to get their pension. Let's keep it real from the monetary standpoint. That's right. But in order to keep that, they've got to do outrageous things to appeal to that, 20% of the Republican Party that they're appealing to, because as you saw with the whole debt ceiling, at the end of the day, the logical ones said, we're not playing here, because if we let this go belly up, China will get more money from us, and other scenarios too. So at the end of the day, the logical ones ruled out those little 8 to 12 crazy ones who talk all the time. So the situation now is that we the only thing we can do is continue prayer, to be honest, which I have to say prayer first. But then I say, have your guns ready. We don't have a choice. They're trying to eliminate us on several levels. They're trying to get rid of us, and they're trying to hope that we kill ourselves. Now, I'd like to go back to the 1940s when Black people managed and manned their own neighborhood. Remember back before it burned that mother down in Los Angeles? Remember, they had Black people then who were more like the Black Panthers, but not only the Black Panthers, they had gang members out there protecting the neighborhood against people coming in who didn't look like us. Yes, I said it. I said it right here. And they did that in other states as well. We need to get back to that right now, because we're dealing with some crazy people out here. These people are trying to control everything. They're trying. So you got people like Ron DeSantis. You got people like Donald Trump. I am really hoping that Chris Christie gets in there and put a good punch into that fight. I'm really hoping that he does the right thing and give a punch, but I don't know. I don't know about Chris Christie, but I'm hoping he's one of the people to say something.
We got names for everybody. The Satan and Chris Christie.
I mean, I don't have much faith in him. Even though he was the governor of my neighbor, New Jersey, to me he's just another. I mean, I don't think he's going to lead the Republicans to the light. I would not put my stock on him to do that.
I know. But Latrice, think about this. Remember the joke out there when Donald Trump was considering making Mike Pence his vice president? The joke was that, so we're gonna let the Grand Dragon be the vice president of the United States.
Well, see, but here's the funny thing about that. What Trump did was brilliant. He had enough sense to realize that he himself could not win. Because keep in mind, he got Pence on his ticket to win over the evangelicals. Because most of the evangelicals don't care for Trump. They think he's crass and uncouth. They don't like him because he says the quiet parts out loud.
Right.
Exactly.
But, with Pence, he was more palatable.
But we have a situation here where we have Mike Pence is now going to put his hat in the ring probably this week. I mean,
correct, and he's not going anywhere. That campaign is dead in the water.
dead on the rise.
And that's the sad part. Assuming that assuming that Trump wins the nomination, who is his running mate going to be? Obviously, it's not going to be Pence, but
Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know what? We shouldn't laugh because I would not be surprised.
I don't put anything past him at this point. I don't put anything past him.
None of them. I put nothing past none of them.
And James Comey said today, I heard it out of his own lips. He says it's very possible that we could have a president being sworn in with an ankle monitor.
That's it. Yeah.
Truth is stranger than fiction. That's all I'm gonna say on that. Truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes,
he said that. He said or we could have one even possibly going to jail. And then what? He said, what constitutional crisis would that be?
Which is why Trump should have been impeached when we had the chance. We had two, not one, but two opportunities to impeach him, and the Senate came up short.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party is acting a little bit strange as well. They're walking in fear, and they're not being proactive. Notice for the last 6 or so years, they've been walking in fear, not proactive. I don't like the Republican Party, but I have to give credit where credit is due. They've always been proactive. They've always kept their agenda
together, united, in good or bad. We need to be taking lessons from them, because they stick together and they don't go and talk about each other out loud. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. They had plans
behind the corners, but they'll rally together, and that's what we have to learn to do. You know,
they've had plans for the Supreme Court justice for a long time, ladies. They've been planning over 20 years. They've been planning. They saw what things happened during the Reagan and the Nixon.
They've been playing the long game for the longest.
For the longest, their game plan is always 20 years out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned about what the game plan is going forward, ladies, because right now their plan is, well, you know, one of the guys, Storm Norm, he's gone now, thank God, but he said it out loud. He said, I wish we could go back to the days of where there was slaves and things like that, you know. So don't you remember that he said that back in the 80s, I think it was, even though he had a black daughter, Storm, I'm trying to think of what his name was, Storm. Okay. Yeah, he said that back then. So this is not something new. It's just that we need to be on top of what the game plan is. Why aren't we being proactive in thinking? Why aren't we trying to figure out what the game plan is? Because it's all coming together to a fold. Now, I'd hate for it to hit us at the last hour. And that's what the Democratic Party is acting like. They're reactive. And they need to be extremely on top of this and trying to figure out what the game plan is.
Right.
It's funny you mention that because I was reading about how Dick Durbin, the senator from Illinois, he didn't want to subpoena Clarence Thomas or John Roberts to a Senate hearing because he didn't think they would come. Ask anyway, as a journalist, and Pam knows this, you know, being that she's in PR, we asked, like, okay, now granted, journalism PR is not quite the same thing, but we still ask the questions. Now, granted, you're not obligated to answer our questions, but as a journalist, it is our job to ask. Even if Thomas ignores the subpoena, are there not consequences for that? But you still have to ask. You still have to issue that subpoena. Because there's so many questions about how this man's been bought and sold, and he probably doesn't even realize it. Where has Chief Justice Roberts been in terms of upholding the court's ethics?
His wife been making $1 million. That's what he's been doing. He's been enjoying that $10 million. I mean, the whole thing is so corrupt. And I just want to know, that's one thing the founding founders did not think about. Why they don't, the Supreme Court they cannot, no branch of government should check itself. I'm sorry, that situation.
That's asking for trouble.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that play out now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably because the founding fathers did not envision the Republican Party being as corrupt as it is right now. But that's why we have checks and balances.
Yeah.
So is it that the Republican Party is totally corrupt? Is that the rest of the United States, are just afraid to act on them? We need to act. This whole thing about Jack Smith, you know, hasn't yet to decide what he's going to do. What do you mean, what are you going to do? Dude didn't want to give documents up. I don't think there's any question at that. You've had employees that work there say that the dude purposely took stuff in the basement. What exactly do you need now to do a case against him? Girlfriend in Georgia now, I'm getting worried for her. The longer she takes on this, I'm getting very worried for her, but I understand her situation. You get Republicans threatening that woman's life, her family's life, who knows who else they're threatening. How do these people get to threaten and get away with it?
Right. I think that from what I've been hearing, though, on her side, that her moves are all very methodical and calculated. But they say that Jack Smith ain't no joke either. They think one prosecutor said he sees the knife coming down, and he says that wasn't hyperbole either. He said that he really it's a wrap. And I think that Comey sees it too, because he said about the ankle monitor and possibly being put in jail, and you still the president. I don't know how this country.
I'm one of the few people who said from the beginning, I've been very patient with Merrick Garland, Fani Willis, Letitia James, and all the other attorneys general who have been investigating Trump, because when they bring their cases forward, it is so important that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, everything is signed, every hair is in place. That is so important because given who the target of the investigations are and given the magnitude of what he's facing, we can't afford to make any slip-ups. Because rest assured, the Republicans are looking. They want us to get sloppy. They want us to do things in haste. And then they're going to pounce on that. I mean, that's why with the impeachment proceedings, I felt we had a strong case. We just didn't have the number.
Right.
But the thing that bothers me about that is, okay, some of these senators were up for re-election.
Right.
They have yet to face any consequences for their choices that day.
Right.
Even with the January 6th hearing, like the cases that brought before judges and the judges have meted out sentences, I would say Stuart Rhodes is probably the most serious one at 18 years. But okay, he's relatively young.
And that wasn't good enough to me. He should have got more.
Okay, 18 years. Okay, so he's in his 50s. I don't know his exact age, but assuming he has a normal lifespan, he'll live to walk out of prison. I really, these people who did what they did on January 6th, again, they didn't think it through. They were acting in haste. They were being dumb. But to let them off the hook with these light sentences, like most of them I've seen have gotten probation, anywhere between 90 days, like 90 days and 10 years, depending on the severity of their accusations. But my thing is, I really felt, no, that was a situation where you need to throw the hammer down.
Right.
Because you need to put these people on notice. Because I truly do believe they're going to try this again.
Most definitely. Thank you.
They're going to try this again. It's like, okay, if they only got 90 days or 5 years or 10 years, that's nothing. I mean, look at what they've done with Ashley Babbitt. They've tried to make her into a martyr.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
You know, like, because, you know, last week, as you know, was Memorial Day, and Memorial Day is to honor the veterans who died. And, well, yeah, she was a veteran. She was in the Air Force, but she didn't die serving our country.
No, she did not.
Doing the opposite of her oath.
Correct. But you wouldn't know that if listening to the Fox Newses and the, you know, other propaganda outlets. You wouldn't know that. You would think, oh, she died serving our country. It's like, and that's why I hate the euphemism, misinformation, disinformation. No, it's straight up lies and propaganda. That's what this is.
It used to be back in the old days that people had shame. The question now for the Republican Party is, you have no shame, because they've done ridiculous atrocities to this nation. Ridiculous. To be honest with you, I don't know if Marjorie Taylor Greene has a degree, to be honest with you. And if she does, somebody probably gave it to her.
Well, the other chick doesn't have one. She barely got a GED.
Exactly. Right. The problem we have now is that we need to figure out what is their next plan of action, because it's already been planned 20 years ago. And so how they're going to implement it. Right now, they're implementing to mess with the police from a certain standpoint, mess with Black people from a certain standpoint with the police. The plan is to try to agitate, because it isn't just Ron DeSantis. A lot of southern states are picking on the immigrants as well. A lot of Republicans are now following Ron DeSantis. They're thinking, well, if he can do it, then we can. So that's what's going on nowadays. So they're following whatever Ron does, and he gets away with it, and the country says something, then they're going to do it as well. So they're slowly getting things back to where they want it to be, back to where they have control, total control, and women included as well. The fight is ridiculous. You've got women out there trying to fight again concerning their own bodies and what they can do with their own bodies. You got issues going on about, it's going to be soon where they're going to be able to control the votes. They're already trying to mess with the votes and everything already. They're already trying to fix things in 2024, so we don't have control over things like we think we do.
But see, that's also on us, because with Roe versus Wade, we had years, if not decades, to come back in federal law. We had time. It's not like, again, when it comes to Republicans, we like the anti-abortion activists. They were straight up with their agenda. We can't sit here and act like, oh, we didn't see this coming.
Correct.
We had time to prepare, and yet once again we got caught flat-footed, asleep at the switch, however you want to put it. But we knew what was coming down the pike. And in terms of this, and in terms of next year's presidential election, I mean, you talking about like the shenanigans going on in the South. It's not limited to the South. I mean, here in New York, we have a fraud in Congress by the name of George Santos. I didn't vote for him. He does not represent me. But something like that could happen in New York.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Laughing about this stuff because I used to laugh at Trump all the time, and look what happened.
Yeah.
Correct.
You think it's gonna stop with him?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. It's the reason why I said the South is because the South always has this ridiculous attitude of behavior. But you are correct. Make no mistake, because again, I feel for New York. Dude has put the people on the bus and shipped them to New York. Remember how they did it? Was it last year that they shipped them to Martha's Vineyard?
Yeah, Martha's Vineyard.
DeSantis did that. He shipped poor people to Martha's Vineyard, as cold as it is, and they ain't hardly have nothing on. They thought that, they figured they going to a warm place.
Yeah, they go to a warm place, they're gonna have a job and a house set up, and it's like, no, they got nothing for y'all.
Went to Martha's Vineyard, child. That was something.
That was a wake up. That was a wake up call to the nation right there. Martha, the people there did what they could for them, but they didn't plan to have them there permanently. Maybe 5, but that's it. They didn't plan to have all of those people there permanently. I mean, we all know the landscape of the real estate in Martha's Vineyard. Yeah. But the scenario here is going on is that the Democratic Party needs to step up to the plate, because they need to make a decision. I think some of the problems of the Democratic Party is that the Democratic Party has stood on fighting for this issue and not that issue. And we've seen what's happened fighting for certain issues. It's not working. Right now, they're talking, I was listening to Simone today on her show when she was talking about the student loans and everything like that. So the Democratic Party is fighting hard about the student loans because that's what the young people want to talk about, because young people don't want to pay that bill. I get that part. But if this is going to cause us to lose points and to lose elections, then we don't need to do this. We need to fight for what's important. We need to point out to the people what's important. And so I'm holding the Democratic Party hostage on this.
What I said regarding student loans, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, we need to cancel the interest. I don't think we should get rid of the principal, but we do need to get rid of the interest, because that's what is why people are in debt.
And that's what
not the principle, it's the interest that's killing these people.
They said with that debt limit bill that Biden just signed, that the bills are coming due in July with interest.
Yeah.
That interest.
And this goes back to what I said before. You can't keep kicking the can down the road. You can't keep sticking your head in the sand. Now granted, I speak from a position of privilege. I paid off my student loans in 2002. But even then, I knew, like, because I was a commuter student. I didn't live on campus. I was a commuter student. And when I was living with my parents, my father always said to me, your education is your responsibility. He didn't co-sign with me on any loans or anything of that nature. Any loans I took out were in my name, and it was my responsibility. That was always stressed to me. Likewise, when I was in high school and I was doing the college application process, the guidance counselor always told me, loans by definition have to be repaid. It is not free money. So when I hear these stories about these people owing all this money, again, I'm sure college today is more expensive than it was when I was a student. But at some point, you have to be honest with yourself. Like, can I really afford to sign on the dotted line for $50,000 or $100,000 or whatever it is you owe? Like where is this money coming from? Like, realistically, like I just think at some point you got to get real with yourself. Because when I graduated in January 2000, just before the .com bubble burst. And yeah, exactly. So like when I hear these students today, like the millennials complain about, oh, the pandemic or the recession, it's like, listen, I've already been where you get to go. And it's not like I had it any easy. It's just a different struggle. My struggle is not your struggle, but rest assured, it wasn't a cakewalk. But to get back to my point about the student loans, again, get rid of the interest. They need to lower the interest. That's what's killing a lot of these people today. It's not the principal. Because the reality is, if you agree to take out a loan, again, by definition, it has to be repaid.
Yeah.
Agreed. I did the same for my son and daughter. I think there are parents out there like me. Perhaps we've done a bad thing. When my son and daughter both went to college, I made sure they both went on a scholarship first. That was the first thing. Second thing was that after we determined what the scholarship would pay for, then we defray from there and try to cover the costs. And so I was able to take care of the costs for them. But it wasn't easy, but that's what I did. But yes, I agree that something has to be done. And so I think that's the problem of the parents. They need to instill in these young kids, particularly Black, I want to say first, then I'll talk about the other people afterwards. But they need to instill that, no, you caused this problem, you brought this on, you said you would pay for it, then pay for it. And then hopefully your parent, if you have a parent like Loretta, can help you pay for this. And if you don't, then handle your business. You can't go out there and buy a BMW and you get a loan that you gotta do.
And I know of a lot of kids that are spending, not all, but some kids think that they can use that money to play with, and it's not to be played with. It's for your education. You know.
I mean, like the things I didn't get to do when I was a student, I would have loved to have studied abroad. I would have loved to have gone away for spring break, but I didn't have it like that. So again, you really have to ask yourself, okay, if I want to do these things, how am I paying for it?
Yeah.
And if I can't pay for it, is there another way? Like, I mean, my time at NYU was a good experience. NYU was good to me in spite of all the ups and downs. And, it remains my most proud accomplishment, earning my college degree. But I had to go through some trials and tribulations.
Yeah, we
all did.
I'm sure everyone has, but like, there were definitely times when I wondered, man, where is the finish line? I don't see it. Because unlike a lot of students, my 4-year plan turned into 6 years. I took a year off school and then I switched majors. So I graduated in 6 years. Okay. But the point being, are people really thinking, again, this goes back to thinking things through. Like I said, by definition, a loan has to be repaid. And if you don't know that coming out of high school, then you've got bigger problems as far as I'm concerned, because that means you're not financially literate. And if you're not financially literate, then you're prone to getting screwed over.
Let me read this comment from Fredia M. Butler. They are not trying to keep you from voting. Voting laws are being changed in many states. Too many of us are sleeping. Wake up, sleeping giant. And there's one more. Many aren't talking in fear of their jobs. What will Mr. Boss say if I am thinking about what we should be doing politically? Well, first off, on your job, we can't talk politics if you're smart. You just can't.
There's a three.
Choose the balance on that. You have to
three. You can't talk politics.
Like I think you have to choose the balance when it comes to talking politics. Like, I am fully aware that my colleagues and supervisors don't think the same way I do. But at the same time, I'm not talking crazy. I'm not talking about overthrowing the government or anything like that. So it's like, again, you do have to be smart in talking politics, but you can't live in fear either.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we are where we are now, because the Democrats, like Loretta pointed out earlier, they're reactive instead of being proactive. You can't govern in fear. You got to lead.
Yeah.
That's why we put you into office. That's why you ran for office, supposedly, because you wanted to lead. So now you have the mic. You're on stage. You have the mic. Do what you're supposed to do. That's why you're there.
Y'all, I hope that this will work this time. Let me see if I can share this. This is something funny I wanted to end on. Had y'all heard about the Lord's chicken?
No, I haven't. The taste good?
It was trending on Twitter. It's about Chick-fil-A being the Lord's chicken.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A finally hired its first DEI officer.
Yes.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, because you know that it's supposed to be a Christian company. They don't open on Sundays. Are they open in New York on Sundays?
No, they're not.
Okay. They kept true to their word. So they weren't gonna do this. And this one young lady got so mad that they had decided, she said they had gone too woke for her. And didn't they know they were the Lord's chicken?
I hate it when people throw that word woke around, because my first question is always, well, what's your definition of woke?
Right.
My
So
first question to her, never mind being the Lord's chicken.
okay. Hold on.
And we really wanted some Chick-fil-A, but because they decided to hire a diversity, equity, and inclusion corporate position, and also bow down to the woke lords because of their ESG scores, and also I found out, their chicken is funded by BlackRock and Vanguard. Are you sure? Yeah, their farms. They use Tyson and this other farm. BlackRock and Vanguard funded chicken. Chick-fil-A, you are no longer the Lord's chicken. You're actually the woke chicken. And I'm really upset about it as a Christian woman. All we wanted was some good fried chicken. So now we're going to go to Cane's. We're going to try it out. This is really difficult to play across the stream. Now eating chicken fingers instead of chicken nuggets. I know first world Christian woman problems. No one will ever understand the love that I had for Chick-fil-A. I got my sweet tea with lemon. No, we're taking this boycott Chick-fil-A thing seriously, and it's really difficult. I got a 4-finger box combo, extra fries, crispy cane sauce.
This one sounds so dumb. I can't even laugh, because she just sounds so stupid. She really does. Like the Lord's chicken. Like, can't get mad behind something like that. I'm like, a dumb witch. And that's not the word I really want to use, but that's how you sound. You sound like a dumb witch. Talking about woke chicken. Like,
You want to know what the real thing is?
Who do you think made fried chicken? Do you hear yourself?
But the other thing is, it's so funny, is that the Cane's chicken place, I never heard of Cane's. Have you heard of Cane's, Latrice?
No, they don't have Cane's here in New York. I think it's a southern thing.
Cane's. Have you ever heard of Cane's anywhere? Cane's chicken? It's like, evidently, they got the boxes and stuff just like Chick-fil-A. So she said, I'm getting Cane's chicken. Girl, how about the Cane's chicken people? Had a lineup of employees dressed in different rainbow colors.
Yeah, because they want no part of these shenanigans.
And they said, how you like that chicken? How you like your rainbow chicken? Or is it gay chicken? Girl, they made so many jokes on Twitter. I just died.
Yeah, because Cane's, again, I'm not familiar with their product, but they don't want to be. I would like to think that their corporate headquarters, they don't want to be associated with this either. They probably looked at her and thought the same thing I thought. Well, you sound really stupid. You sound so dumb. Like I can't even get mad. It's just like, really.
Judy Davis says Mrs. Butler is correct. Voting laws are being changed while they're creating distractions about drag queens. I am so sick of the drag queen stuff. I just saw that they've made it you can't have any drag queen shows on base now. Who can? I mean, come on.
I've been of the mindset that if you're living your life and doing your thing, you don't have time to hate. If a
No.
drag queen wants to be a drag queen, let them be.
Yeah,
Like-
George Santos is a drag queen. What they gonna talk about that?
Well, they're not going to. That's the extent of GOP hypocrisy. But my thing is, okay, I don't have an issue with Santos being a drag queen. I don't have an issue with him being gay. My issue is this man's a liar. And he's a habitual liar, and he's unfit for office. That's my issue. You know,
he's
and
just
someone alluded to before, like, you know, that all this is a distraction from the bigger issues. And, you know,
Correct.
like,
Correct.
okay, listen, gay people have always been here. They've always existed. They're not going anywhere. Let them be.
anywhere. They all Republican.
Again, my thing is, you do you. I choose to find you, but you don't get to tell me how to do me.
Right.
So I have no issues with, like, they're not, the drag queens aren't bothering me. They're not the ones taking away my right to vote. They're not the ones infringing on my bodily autonomy. So
Right.
like, really, miss me with this nonsense.
No, I know it is just so, y'all. It's so much craziness. But I had to end the show on something with some laughter because it was so. You know what? Some of the stuff you just got to laugh at. Now the young lady ended up saying on the Turning Point. You know, that's a very conservative Christian organization. She said the libs just went crazy over my joke. Well, it might have been a joke, but she was serious too, calling it wasn't the Lord's chicken no more. So you went to Canes and you even made a bigger fool of yourself.
Pretty much. That's why I couldn't laugh, because to me it's just like, really, like if you, I mean, black people can't have fried chicken. So who you fooling?
I want our people.
She can't cook the fried chicken, so you know she had to.
We've got to stay tuned. We've got to hold our politicians accountable, because there are things going on. I believe there's worse things coming. And so unfortunately, we might have to do like the old ladies did and have food stored in the pantry and stuff like that. We need to be prepared, because it's not going to get pretty.
Well, hey, order, so you know.
Yeah, it's not going to get pretty. I'm enjoying Trump and DeSantis fighting. I'm loving watching this fight because it's interesting to see. But again, I'm angry at the Democratic Party. Why aren't they being proactive? This is getting embarrassing. This has gone beyond embarrassing for me, because
I would say
they should already be doing things to know what's coming down the pipe. So we're watching people killing each other and doing things that are insane. And I hope our Black community is trying to do like they did in the 50s and try to band together and protect each other from the outsiders and stuff like that.
The sad thing, though, Loretta, that we don't have and is that there is no, you know how we had King and you had this group of men, and then you had and women, and you had churches that were, now I can say that my church is very oriented that way, extremely so. I've had my pastor on once, and I'm going to have him on again because he's written another book, because he's really into this whole Christian nationalism stuff. And one of the things we're in the mega churches, but you notice, what have any of them said about social justice?
Correct.
Quiet like church mice.
Yeah, exactly. Too quiet. Well, listen, y'all, it's a little after 9.
They don't want anything to interfere with the cash flow, if you catch my drift. That's what that's all they care about.
That's the whole thing.
The corporations in the skies, but y'all not ready for that conversation.
Oh, listen. We're gonna have that conversation, because we have got to. That's why things are so disjointed. We don't have like a central place of the unification of us. You see, that's one huge issue that we did not have back in the day.
Correct.
That is one, people are going to church all right, but they ain't talking about nothing.
Correct.
Okay? They're not. But anyways, Karen says, do they actually think that the Lord does not want people to be woke? No, that young lady doesn't. And it's unfortunate to see somebody so young with that mindset. That's kind of frightening to me, actually. But anyways, ladies, I have enjoyed you guys. This has been a great session. Loretta, I'm so glad you were able to sign on and stuff. And Latrice, as usual. But you two came through for me, and I so appreciate it. On the 18th of this month, we're going to have a really interesting show with a former Crips gang member who has served 30 years in jail, and with a sister named Barbara Gaskins, who is prominent here in North Carolina, but she's written a book on reentry. And they are taking that reentry message and her book and knowledge and stuff nationwide. And it'll be on Father's Day, when unfortunately so many of our fathers have been incarcerated or are incarcerated. So that's our show on the 18th. So stay tuned. Keep coming back every Sunday. We're trying to keep the people educated and knowing what's going on, and have you thinking about policy and all that good stuff. All right, let's sign off, guys. Good night, everyone.
Stay safe. Take care.
Thank you.